Hello, Podsmashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of Termite's Buzz, a weekly video game podcast where me, your host, Termite, runs through the trophies I'm playing, the video game industry news of the week, and ending the show with a little bit of a retro discussion. I hope you are all doing well. It is a snowy Sunday afternoon here in the mountains of Virginia, and I am elated and absolutely ecstatic, excited, so happy, because right before recording this episode, I sat down to play Theater Rhythm Final Bar and achieved platinum number 93 after 35 or so, maybe 40 hours of rhythming in the Final Fantasy world. Before I get into that, again, I'm your host, Termite, and you can find this episode, along with any other ones, over at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website with links to all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Discord, and Twitter, as well as our TikTok channel. Everything you need, our RSS feed is there, audio feeds are all Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, whatever you need, we are there. So go check us out at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80BIT and leave us your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, and ideas. Your feedback is well needed. Please tell me what you want to hear about, elaborate more on what I talk about, ask me some questions, do whichever you need to do over at 80bitpodsmash.com. So I got the Platinum in Theater Rhythm Final Bar. How was the trophy? It was straightforward, but it had its pain points. I think there's some things that I would have done differently, but it is what it is. So if you look at the list itself, all of the difficulty is hidden within. It's not obvious because there's no, quote, difficulty trophies. There's nothing there. But one of the things that's buried is completing all of the quests. Now, you can play through every single song in the game in what's organized as like a single-player campaign, sort of, quote-unquote, right? So you're going through every single Final Fantasy game as well as some of the other spin-offs, and you're doing a song. And you can choose whatever difficulty you want to do a song with. There's 3 or 4, depending on which song. And then there's like a special like objective you need to complete. So it's like do 1,000 damage. And so you, with the RPG mechanics married with the rhythm aspects of the game, you have to figure out and assemble your team. Your team levels up. You can choose the abilities your team does. And there's way hard quests like defeat a boss in 25 seconds. And you have to come up with, it's not just beat a boss in 25 seconds. That boss comes out after X many enemies, and you have to time your summons correctly because you build up a summon bar as you play a song, and every single note that you hit builds up your summon. Of course, there's all the abilities and team combinations that affect how quickly you summon bar runs. And this is just one very specific example. There's many builds online. I perused Reddit for hours trying to figure out how to beat some of these specific quests that were the pain points. So pretty difficult. I would rate this like a 7 out of 10 in difficulty just because you have to grind so much to get the correct character team combination with abilities, and there's these other like summon stones. It's the whatever summon you call out, but the summon stones have their own like abilities that it's all random based on drop RNG. So you have to find like a Leviathan that gives you physical damage increase by 15% and summon damage increase by 30%, and it's a whole thing. And there's all these like stat buff moves that you can do that multiplies magic, multiplies physical. And then there's enemies. They each have their weaknesses and their strengths. And so it's hard. It's not super straightforward. The guide wasn't published until after I was almost done. So there is now a trophy guide on PSN Profiles if you are looking to get started on this platinum. But there's my thoughts. Great game, absolutely phenomenal game. I will leave it installed on my PlayStation forever. It's digital, which I don't normally do. I love discs, but this time there was like bonus digital songs that were like extra DLC, and I wanted those. Instead of buying a physical copy and then buying a digital license to add to it, I thought I'm just going to buy it all digital. It's not my character. It's not what I normally do, but I did this time, and I'll leave it installed forever, so whenever I feel like playing a rhythm game and diving into some Final Fantasy music, it'll be there for me, waiting, and I won't have to worry about a disc, waiting for installs or patches, so I'll just let it hang out. So what's next then? I'm done with platinum number 93. So this is, I believe, the 4th platinum I have achieved this year. And that, if you're following my 2 platinums per month and you realize like I do that it's March, I am still 2 platinum trophies behind. So what's next? Horizon Call of the Mountain, of course, on PSVR 2. I want to finish that up. And I think that'll be a relatively quicker platinum. And on the heels of that is Hogwarts Legacy, which is another meaty game that I've only put like 10 or 15 hours in so far out of like 50. So I'll be playing that for a long time. Hogwarts Legacy is my next like big single player title. There's a couple of March releases coming up that I'm probably going to have to let slip. Like, I'm not going to be able to get them right away. And one of those is like Bayonetta Origins is coming out this week. And Resident Evil 4 Remake, of course, is the big title coming out at the end of March. And then in April, there's Horizon Forbidden West DLC I would like to play. Advance Wars 1 and 2 comes out April 21st. Dead Island 2 looks promising April 21st. But the next must-have game is Star Wars Jedi Survivor coming in April 28th. So I have about a month and a half to knock out some of these platinums and start like making some progress on my trophy rate. So yeah, if I finish Horizon Call of the Mountain and I finish Hogwarts Legacy, that's 2 more platinums. And then that would satisfy March. And I might be one off. I gotta look this up. This is why I use PSN profiles, because you can click on trophy log and you can sort by platinums only, and it's not up to date. Let me update my profile because that Platinum 93 is hot off the press. This is why you came here. You come here to listen to me rant about my trophies. I would love to know if there are other trophy hunters that listen to my show. That would be awesome. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, I was correct. So I'm 2 behind. 2 platinum trophies behind. So we shall see what I do. I need to get 2 more to catch up. And then if I'm not looking to play another game until April 28th, that means I need 4 more. So woof. Maybe I can circle back around to that Persona 5 Royal PS5 version platinum. That's going to take a while. It's not going to be hard. And I'm loving that. That's super fun. But Horizon Call of the Mountain. There's a couple of VR games, actually, that might have quicker platinums that I might go after. One of them is called Startender. It's like a bartending game. I have these on my wish list. I haven't bought them yet. And the other one is new. I heard about it. I forgot the name of it already. And I need to go look at my wish list because it sounded absolutely amazing. And it should be on the top. Before Your Eyes. Yeah. If you listen to Kinda Funny and their show, P.S. I Love You, XOXO, he being Greg, went on a huge rave how amazing that game is. So Before Your Eyes, I might check that out. And he said the platinum is relatively straightforward and pretty quick. So that's enough of Termite's trophies. I'm also still playing Metroid Prime on the side, but that's not trophy related. Whole bunch of news dropped this week, so hopefully a couple of quick stories here. I'm going to start off by talking about this. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League is delayed again. So I'm going to read from Polygon's article written by Michael McWhorter. Rocksteady Studios' follow-up to the Batman Arkham series, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, won't make its previously announced May 26th release date, according to Bloomberg. Warner Brothers is reportedly delaying the game to sometime later this year, which follows a tepidly received gameplay reveal in February. I actually ranted about that in this show, on this podcast, back in February when that State of Play happened. That reveal, shown during Sony's State of Play showcase dedicated to the Suicide Squad game, highlighted the 4-player co-op central to Kill the Justice League. Footage of Rocksteady's long-awaited title featured the game's cast of killers, Harley Quinn, King Shark, Captain Boomerang, and Deadshot, battling the forces of Brainiac and the brainwashed members of the Justice League in a ruined metropolis. The co-op gameplay smacked of Destiny 2 and Anthem inserted into Batman Arkham universe. That's a great way to put it. Good job, Polygon. But it was the live service trappings that appeared to deflate Rocksteady fans, who blanched at the game's cosmetic-packed Battle Pass, quote, gear score menus, and shoot and loot mechanics. A fact from Rocksteady and Warner Brothers released after the gameplay reveal confirmed that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League will require an online connection even when playing the game solo. This is the second public delay for Rocksteady's Suicide Squad game, which was originally planned for a 2022 release. So given that this was just delayed till later in the year, quote unquote, like there's no big, if you think this is a big like hubbub, a big hadoo, and maybe a big redo of things, don't. Just lower your expectations. I'm sure this type of delay is just some extra polish, some things to like get last minute mechanics down, maybe some netcode optimized. I doubt this is going to be a full reworking, like Shadow of War the sequel to Shadows of Mordor, when Warner Brothers completely gutted all of the microtransactions out of the game. I don't think it's going to be that big of a delay patch. This is just going to be some extra polish. I'm still definitely not pre-ordering this game and definitely not interested in it at all until it comes out and I hear some reviews and hear about like how deep is the games as a service, because it seemed kind of samey, right? All 4 characters were shown on the state of play, and they all seem to play the same. Lots of airborne third-person shooting. That's about it. And it kind of looks like they said, Anthem, maybe some Outriders and Destiny 2. Nothing like what the Batman Arkham games were. But we'll see what happens. I'll keep an eye on this again. I always for delays. I love them. They're the best thing that ever happened. Like, please delay a game before releasing it. Cyberpunk taught everyone a huge lesson, including myself, to not release games, big, huge AAA budget games when they're not ready yet. Hot on the heels of that, Starfield was also delayed until September, with the Starfield Direct coming in June. This is also a Polygon article written by Cass Marshall. Bethesda Softworks announced a new launch date for the upcoming sci-fi RPG Starfield, a massive galaxy-spanning game that builds off Elder Scrolls gameplay and structure. Starfield was originally announced in 2018 and set for November 11th, 2022 launch. That date was later pushed back to the first half of this year, 2023. The new release date now is September 6th. Starfield draws inspiration from Bethesda's own Elder Scrolls, including a silent protagonist and first-person conversations. There are also more than 100 star systems to explore and more than 1,000 planets for the player to peruse, which gives the game a massive scope similar to games like No Man's Sky or Elite Dangerous. So Todd Howard had this. This was actually announced. There's a YouTube video from Bethesda. Todd Howard is talking through it. So quoting him, "We have poured ourselves into this game, and even I'm surprised how much we can pour. It is large. There's so much we still have yet to show you. This game has many of the hallmarks that you would expect from us, but it's also a very unique experience," he says. "We know you've waited a long time to play something new from us. Believe it or not, we're kind of the same. We miss it, and we can't wait for you all to play it." So it will be on Xbox Series X, Windows PC, and Game Pass, which is interesting that there's no Series S involved in this, so maybe it is a true next-gen game. That's kind of cool. Anyway, I go back to what I said earlier. Delayed games are always great. Fix it. Make it right. Don't release it. I understand that there are budgets, and there are stock values, and there's promises to publishers, and there's all the money and all the business in it, but you can avoid a ton of bad publicity if you just delay the game. And this game has been delayed yet again. I know COVID threw a huge wrench into its development cycle with the work from home, switching things over, and all this offices being closed. But yeah, I'm excited about Starfield. And another delay makes me more excited, because that means they're going to make it right. They're going to not release a Fallout 76 again, which was a train wreck. Hopefully, this will be the most solid Bethesda release we've had ever, because every single one of the Fallout games and Elder Scrolls games have what they call like the Fallout jank, the Bethesda jank, where it's just like acceptable levels of kind of hilarity involved with some of the physics and the clipping and some of the way the enemies like animate through buildings. It's just like, because everything that Bethesda has made so far with those Fallout and Elder Scrolls games has been huge, massive open worlds, and those are just really, really prone to bugs and errors and glitches and little things, as we've seen with The Witcher 3. The only game that came out that was flawless was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and the only way you could ever get any jank out of it is if you broke it yourself, which the community, of course, has done. So you can go check those videos out too. But Starfield 2023. I'm excited. Looking good. It's on my Fantasy Critic. So is Suicide Squad, actually. So maybe that's why I'm so excited about these delays, because it'll just make it so my scores are better. There was next bit of news. There was a Capcom Spotlight. I missed this entirely. So usually I would have like a lot of my own thoughts and opinions about each thing as these kinds of things. It's a big long trailer, big announcements, companies coming, yeah, this is next, and this is what's next, and this is that. And I would be like into it, but I totally missed this with life. There was just no way I was getting to it. So I'm going to just go, this is IGN, Logan Plant wrote this, Capcom Spotlight, March, everything announced. And so here we go. Resident Evil 4 special demo available today. Capcom revealed that the Resident Evil 4 Chainsaw demo is available to download today. Trial version of the game takes place at the beginning of the game as Leon first enters the iconic European village. There's no time limit on the demo, so you can play it as many times as you want. I need to get this. I need to check it out. Now that I got that platinum out of the way, I might do that. Exo Primal release date. This was a game that was announced... when was it announced? There was a new trailer and release date for Exo Primal. It's coming July 14th on Xbox Series X, Xbox One, PS5, PS4, and Steam. We got to look at a ton of dinosaur hunting action as well as an introduction to some of the game's characters. The trailer also said that Exo Primal is always online game with a continuous internet connection required. Blurdy, blurdy, blur. Another game I don't have time for. Monster Hunter Rise. Sunbreak is coming to PlayStation and Xbox this April. Monster Hunter Rise came to Xbox and PlayStation platforms earlier this year, and now hunters can look forward to the Sunbreak expansion. It was released on Switch and Steam last year, adds two new locations, a new hub world, and a ton of new monster rank monsters and weapons. Capcom also announced a new Sunbreak digital event set for April to share information about the next title update for Switch and Steam players. So if you're into Monster Hunter Rise, there's a whole new world coming for you for the other platforms for Xbox and PlayStation. Ghost Trick is launching on June 30th. The original Ghost Trick was a DS title from the creator of Capcom's Ace Attorney franchise, Shu Takumi. The game stars Sissel, a dead detective who can possess and trick real-world objects to save people from their own demise. The remaster features updated graphics, better frame rate, and new challenge feature. All 37 songs from the soundtrack have newly arranged versions from the composer of the great Ace Attorney soundtrack. I have no idea what this game is. Is it actually... Nope, it's just it's a whole new IP. Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. I never played the Professor Layton games, but I've heard good things about them. Or, I'm sorry, Ace Attorney, not Professor Layton. Entirely different. Totally different franchises. I'd never played any of them, but I've heard good things. Resident Evil Dead Island movie adds Jill Valentine. Wow, Jill Valentine. Short teaser for Resident Evil Dead Island, a new movie coming later this year. I guess we already knew it had Leon Kennedy and Chris Redfield, but this showed Jill Valentine's inclusion. So that's kind of neat. Street Fighter 6 introduces a new commentator, Hikaru Takahashi. So if you're into esports, subtitles for the commentators in 13 languages revealed the Capcom Pro Tour 2023 season will feature Street Fighter 6. A new trailer update, new content for Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. We got a new trailer for the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. That's a words, which is coming on April 14th. The collection will include 499 patch cards that were previously exclusively available in Japan as physical collectibles. Now, all players will be able to use these cards in battle from Battle Network 4 and onwards. The developers also introduced Mega Buster mode, which amplifies your attack power by 100 to allow players to get through battles faster. That sounds awesome. These games eluded me through their actual releases. This is actually something I'm going to talk about a little bit here. So the Mega Man Battle Network games, there's a whole bunch of them, and they spanned like DS, 3DS, and I missed all of them, but they've always seemed very interesting to me, and I've heard good things about them. So this is on my radar of games. I kind of want this, and I'm hoping with this extra attack power to 100, I'm going to look at the trophy list, and if it's not ridiculous, I'll add this to my collection, because I already have the Mega Man X collection, and I have the Mega Man Zero collection. The Mega Man Zero games are hard. They're really hard. A bunch of Game Boy Advance and DS games. So I'm glad that they're now porting the Mega Man Battle Network games over. So you have all of these old retro Mega Man games from like Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance, and DS, 3DS. I don't know about 3DS, because I don't know all of the platforms by heart for Mega Man Battle Network. But I'm excited about that. That's cool. And I'll have to go check that trailer out after I'm done recording this, so I can go see that for myself. There's a lot of news this week. A lot of like small hits, right? A lot of little hype excitements. I don't know if it's just that time of year. A bunch of cool spring releases have already hit. So it's just that time of year in the industry. In the gaming industry, we're just busy. So the next thing, of course, we may or may not know already because it's kind of late that I'm talking about this, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe getting 5 more characters in future DLC waves. So Wave 4 had come out. It was announced before, showcased off, and like the last Nintendo Direct type update, and we got a release date for it. The same Nintendo Direct where they announced Metroid Fusion, or the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy games. Like, we knew it was coming. What we didn't know was the inclusion of we knew Birdo was coming, but in the character select screen, what we now know is that under Birdo is 5 more question marks. So it's a whole new column in the character select sheet. So we're getting 5 more. What a weird way to not announce that. But according to Adele Anker's Range over on IGN, the latest update for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has arrived, and it shows that 5 more characters will join the roster in future DLC waves. Wave 4 of the Booster Course Pass added 8 new tracks to the games alongside Birdo as a playable racer. However, there are now 5 empty slots on the character selection screen, indicating that more drivers will arrive in future DLC drops. So that's pretty awesome. So I'm excited. I love that they're continuing to support Mario Kart 8 because the game is amazing and perfect. It is my favorite Mario Kart. And I played it on the Wii U extensively, like a lot. And then, of course, I got it on the Switch and kept playing. It's like Nintendo Switch's best-selling title. It's awesome, right? I really want Mario Kart 9 really badly. So I love the support Mario Kart 8 is getting, but I'm also it's a two-edged sword or double-sided coin where I'm like bummed that we're not getting a Mario Kart 9 yet. Maybe for the next Switch, the next platform. And we'll see. But we got a lot more content coming from Mario Kart 8. There's still 2 more course packs on the way. So that's 16 more tracks. And another thing I'll kind of be bummed about or even slightly complain is that I don't really appreciate the Mario Kart Tour game on the cell phone. Like, it's fine. It's an okay game. But what I don't like is that the courses from there, the real-world city locations, are coming over to Mario Kart 8. And I'm bummed because I'd rather just have all of the retro courses made. So I love all the retro courses. Courses from the Super Nintendo game, the Game Boy Advance, Super Circuit, and of course Double Dash, the Mario Kart Wii, which I don't really like that much, but Mario Kart DS, Mario Kart 7. I want all of those courses so that I can kind of replay those games in their entirety. Like, it would be awesome to be able to customize a set of tracks. Like, I can choose 8 courses and I have access to every single Mario Kart track. That's the vision. That's the dream, right? Everyone is here for Mario Kart. It's every character and every track from every single Mario Kart game brought forward. That'd be amazing. That's a pipe dream. Well, what we are getting are a bunch of real world city locations from a cell phone game, which I don't appreciate. I don't really like them. And it kind of bums me out because they're taking up space for something I'd rather have. But they're there and they're not bad. It's good stuff. If you appreciate what you got, instead of complaining about what you don't, you can be a happy Mario Kart fan. But that's my 2 cents. That's why you came to this show. And last bit of news, certainly not least, is finally the big giant firmware update that Sony has been teasing about for PlayStation 5 is upon us. And now I'm going to read from Taylor Lyles over on IGN. Hefty PS5 firmware 7.0 update adds a host of quality of life improvements. Earlier today, Sony launched version 7 of PlayStation 5 software, which includes support for VRR, that's variable refresh rates, at 1440p resolution. So in the past, the PlayStation 5 had supported VRR, variable refresh rate, for 4K and 1080. But now 1440p, which is the in-between resolution, is included. And that's a resolution that is very, very prominent in the PC monitor space. In fact, I have 2 1440p monitors hooked up, and for some reason, when the PlayStation 5 had launched, it did not have support for that resolution at all. It would do super sampling, where it would render at 4K and then downsample to 1440, so it wouldn't be all blurry. It would actually be but you wouldn't be able to get, the whole reason why you want that is because for the console to render at 4K, it requires more processing power. So if you lower that resolution to 1440, you actually get some overhead freed up on the processing power side for better frame rates or better details in the visuals. And so there's a whole going to 120 hertz is now, it has a feature the PlayStation 5 supports. So if you can do 1440 at 120 hertz, you can actually get 45 to 50 frames per second. And with variable refresh rate, that actually cleans up all the screen tearing. Screen tearing is when the monitor's refresh rate and the system's frame rate that it's rendering don't line up. And so 1440 matters for all of that, for just extra options for players to be able to play on different monitors and tweak their settings in such a way they can get the best visuals at the highest frame rates. And there's another option added to the table with this firmware. So 1440p with variable refresh rate, that's awesome. And if I had my PS5 hooked up to one of these PC monitors, I would be playing God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Forbidden West at that 1440p resolution, and I would turn it up to quality mode instead of performance mode, and I would use variable refresh rate, and I would still get the feeling of that 60 frame rate 60 frames per second smoothness, but it wouldn't be 60 frames per second. It would be like 45 to 55, but the graphics fidelity, like the rendering details, the texture resolutions, the draw distances, the lighting, all of that stuff would be boosted because I'd be playing on fidelity mode, not performance mode. It's a whole thing. So that happened. Another big deal with this firmware update is Discord integration. Finally, you can now, it's a little honky, a little wonky, a little difficult to get into, but the gist of it is you can join a Discord voice chat channel, and you can then transfer that into your PlayStation so that your PlayStation takes over your voice, and you can use natively on the console. You can play games with your friends. This works weird, so I'll kind of walk through it, at least the gist of it. You have to link your Discord account to your PlayStation account through your console. So you cannot do this on a web. You can't do it on your phone. You have to log into the console, go to your profile, go to settings, like go to your profile settings, and then go down to where it says like linked apps or linked something services, and then find Discord, and then it gives you a QR code. You scan it with your phone. If you're logged into Discord on that phone, it'll link your device up, and it might ask you for an authentication code if you have two-factor authentication. Bada bing, your PlayStation is now linked to your Discord. Then on your phone or mobile device, you can join any Discord chat channel, and in that chat channel on your phone, it'll ask you if you want to transfer it to your PlayStation. And that's kind of how it works on Xbox as well. But once you do that, you hit the button, and then your PlayStation console responds with a notification saying you have joined a Discord chat, and it will then switch to your PlayStation 5's headset, microphone situation, whatever you have going on for that, and no longer on your phone. And then you can disconnect either from the console or from your phone. So it's cool. Thanks to the latest firmware update, US and UK can now use voice commands to capture gameplay. These users can say actions such as, "Hey PlayStation, start recording," to begin capturing gameplay footage. This feature is convenient for those who want to capture gameplay footage without using the button prompts to start recording. Sony also made it easier for PS5 owners to find their VR games. Using new filters in your game library, you will be able to filter out and quickly locate all your PlayStation VR and PlayStation VR 2 games you currently own. The latest PS5 firmware update makes it easier for PS5 owners to access their PS4 saved data. When users install a PS4 game on their PS5 and have a saved data file, a notification will appear in the PlayStation Network cloud storage. PS4 to PS5 data transfer aside, the latest firmware update makes it easy to transfer PS5 data to another PS5 console by using a local Wi-Fi network or LAN cable. The last noteworthy thing introduced in the new PS5 firmware update is that PS5 owners that own a game's physical disc can now use the same disc installation to play the digital copy without inserting the disc into their console. This is a major convenience save for me. I love this because I buy all of my games on disc, and then they will later come to PlayStation Network or PlayStation Plus for free, and I will want to not have the disc installed anymore and just use the digital one so that I don't have to get up off my couch and put the disc in. Like Borderlands 3 and Outriders are a prime example of two games I had installed on my console from the disc. Then their respective digital versions came out on PlayStation Plus, and I went to go download those, and it won't let you. So I had to uninstall the disc version and then re-download the full digital one. So this update now allows me to install the game by disc, which is faster. It's a faster install than it is downloading the entire game. So any game in my library that I want, I can put the disc in. If I have the digital version of that same game, I can then just use the disc to install it and then switch to the digital version, and I never have to use that disc again to actually play it, which is awesome. It saves a whole bunch of time. If you do have both the physical and the digital version of a game, that's the way to go. Continuing on, the update follows the recent release of PlayStation VR 2, which we called a quantum leap over the original. Oh, he's just talking about that. Okay. There were updates to all the controllers. So if you got this firmware update, every single controller, DualSense controller that's connected to it needs to be updated, and it can do it wirelessly now, which is cool. My PlayStation VR 2 headset also had an update, and its controllers, the Sense controllers for it, had updates. So everything had to be updated. It was wild, except for the headset. I guess that's the only thing that didn't. But yeah, so these are these quality of life things that I think should have been in the system from day one, especially all of the variable refresh rate and resolution options. That stuff should have all been there day one. And this like save data transfer stuff that is confusing. If it's confusing to you, it was confusing to me when I read it just now. Like it my eyes just glossed over. When you would transfer like PlayStation 4 save data and distinguishing that, what? I don't understand. Being like, that should have been day one. Whatever, like, ease. I remember when the console first dropped, it came out, and you would put in a PS4 game that had a PlayStation 5 version also. It would automatically install the PS4 version from the disc, and then you would have to download the PS5 version digitally, but you don't want both. It takes up way too much hard drive space. You want to uninstall the PS4 version, fine, but every time you put the disc in to play the PS5 one, it would reinstall the PS4 version from the disc automatically. It's so frustrating. These are the things that should have been ironed out from the beginning that just make Xbox so much more consumer-friendly and easier to use, because you just get one version of the game, and it's the best one. There's no transfer. There's no separate trophy or achievement list. There's no transfer over to the PS5 version. There's no weird wonky go into the PlayStation 4 version and upload your save from within the game and then launch the PlayStation 5 version of the game and download your save. I'm looking at you, Borderlands 3, and that was awkward. And sometimes it doesn't work. It errors out. It doesn't quite... it's so frustrating. And I just wish that they were better for that. So, I think that is the end of my news. Now it is time to talk about retro games. Sorry for the long, awkward silence pause, because I was switching gears. Still thinking about what I want to say. I have the notes right in front of me, so it's just weird. Okay, it was Mario Day. March 10th happened this week. So happy Mario Day. A couple happy belated Mario Day. What I did was post a picture on social media of the first 4 Mario games to be released. And I did that because, not just because they were the first 4 Mario games on Mario Day, but because they actually matter in my life. In fact, if you don't know this, I'm 30 plus years old. I have been playing video games since I was 5 years old. I adore video games. It's my biggest passion in life as far as hobbies are concerned. I have played video games all the time, extensively, my entire life. I have never waned. I usually don't get distracted by other things. There are other interests in my life. It's not everything, but it is the most prominent interest that I have when it comes to media or entertainment. Some people like to read. Some people are really into music. And there's a million other hobbies people can get into, but I'm into video games. That's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I've been doing podcasting for 5+ years. That's why I follow the industry. That's why I'm subscribed to gaming magazines and have an extensive retro collection of games. The reason I even cared to post a picture of those Mario games is because those were the ones that started it all. When I was younger than 5 years old, my family had a Nintendo, and me and T-Bone and our parents would play the original Mario game. And I was too young to even know what I was doing. Of course, I was running into the holes. I'm sure I was given the second controller that was not plugged in just so I could play. And be quiet, Danny, here, take the other controller. We all do it to the little kids, the toddlers who don't really understand. But what I do remember playing and actually knowing what I was doing is Mario 3 on the original Nintendo. And I vaguely remember some Mario 2 going on in there somewhere, but really for me, I would say my very first memorable, coherent, cognitive memory of playing video games was Super Mario 3. And so with that, I played all 3 of the original Nintendo Marios a lot before we even got a Super Nintendo, which didn't come out until 91. I was 5, but we didn't get one right away. I don't know when we got our Super Nintendo. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember Mario World blew our minds. Everything we loved about Mario was just on another level. It's still an amazing game today. It holds up perfectly. That's what's cool about the Super Nintendo generation is that it's not 3D. It's not super janky with bad frame rates and clipping and horrible animation. It's the same kind of art style that modern indie games use today to come out with new games because the graphic style is timeless. It's wonderful. And the sound is awesome. So Super Mario World was foundational in my jump to modern gaming. It's just what it was. What I should have also taken a picture of was Super Mario 64 because that is a legendary step in 3D platformers and modern gaming today. That was the jump from 2D to 3D that was done correctly. There was a ton of PlayStation games that were platformer games that didn't do it right. So I'm looking at Ape Escape or Crash Bandicoot. They were awkward, janky. It's Spyro. None of the Tomb Raider even. They were just difficult, and the graphics were super low resolution, and they were jittery, and they weren't rendered correctly. Whereas Mario 64 was flawless. It had a great frame rate. It had free-formed camera, like what we know is the two sticks controls that we have today, were like the C buttons on the N64 and the joystick. I know that controller was crazy, and people still can't like figure it out, and it's kind of awkward. But at the time, it was like nuts. It had 3 handles, and you could move your hand from the outward handle to the middle handle to switch from a D-pad to a joystick. And so Mario 64 used that joystick on your left thumb and the C buttons on your right thumb. The C buttons would control the camera, and yes, it was not a second joystick yet. That would come later with the GameCube or the DualShock on the PlayStation side of the house, and then the Xbox, of course. But yeah, Mario 64 was foundational. So I loved all of those original Mario titles. They were all like super, super foundational in my modern love for gaming. So with Mario Day, I could not neglect talking about Mario because it's huge. And I had a thought about some retro games. T-Bone and I adored a racing game series on the Super Nintendo that no one ever talks about today. It's gone. I think there were some entries in the franchise on the N64, maybe, and there may have been one as far as PS2, Xbox generation, but since then, it is absolutely gone. And that is a racing game known as Top Gear. For Super Nintendo, there was a Genesis one, but Top Gear 1 and 2 and Top Gear 3000 were 3 entries into this franchise. And it went all the way to PlayStation 2. So there was Top Gear Rally on the N64, Top Gear Overdrive, Top Gear Rally 2, Top Gear Hyperbike, Top Gear Daredevil, and RPM Tuning. There's a couple of Top Gear games on the Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Color as well that I never played. Yeah, there was a Top Gear GT Championship. Those I don't really know. But I don't think it's related to the Top Gear show at all. So I don't understand where this came from, but I need to learn more about it. It's development studio. It was published by Kemco. It was developed by Gremlin Graphics in 1992. I just don't know this game or like where it came from. So I'm going to read from the Wikipedia and maybe we can learn together. But what even brought that on, where it came from, was the songs just randomly in my head. And I was like, I need to listen to this. And so I went on YouTube and like searched Top Gear Super Nintendo soundtrack, and sure enough, all of it's there. And I was rocking out to it like one morning, driving my kids to school. I was having a blast. So the objective is the game is to become the fastest driver in the world by racing other drivers across several nations. The franchise is unrelated to the TV series of the same name. It marks the first game in the Top Gear racing franchise, is Top Gear 1, and it is one of the first racing games to be released on the Super Nintendo. This game and its 2 next sequels were created by the same developers as the similar Lotus series of games released earlier on the Commodore Amiga and Sega Mega Drive. I think I've got Lotus. I have a copy of that on Sega Genesis, but I've not really dove into it. So, gameplay. When players first start the game, they are given several options to choose from, including entering their name, choice of 4 different controller layouts, a choice between automatic or manual transmissions, and their choice of 4 unique cars. During the race, the player will have to steer and shift gears if they choose manual. The player is also given control over 3 nitros. NOS hits, I don't know, which allow the player to increase their speed for a short period of time. The game features a password save system made up of automotive terms such as gearbox and oilcloth. Each password grants access to another country to race in. During the race, there are pits in which players must stop in order to refuel. If their car runs out of fuel and coasts to a stop before the race is finished, the player will be disqualified. So it was unique, right? I mean, this is like a Super Nintendo game. You got pit stops, some refueling, and manual transmissions. Yes, you can only choose from 4 different types of cars, but they had their stats and they were balanced. Like, whichever one had better handling and whatnot. And I remember the game being difficult, but a lot of games were difficult because I was just little and didn't really understand games. And we had a Game Genie, so we would use Game Genie to like get through. We didn't have the internet to like go look up passwords. And it used a password save system, so you didn't have a game save. You just wrote down your password on your notebook or whatever, and that's how you saved your game. So it's very of the times, but it was one of the first racing games on Super Nintendo, and it uses what's called like parallax. I don't know, is it scaling? Where like the background appears to move at a different rate than the foreground, which gives you a faked out kind of isometric 3D look. And that's how a lot of racing games back then did. And Super Nintendo, of course, utilized that, and it was great. It felt like crazy good sense of speed, the way that the lanes on the road would like blink by you. It had nighttime racing with like headlights. It was awesome. I had a blast, and we played a lot of it. If you ever played Top Gear, no one talks about this game anymore. There's no like remasters. It's just not even in the conversation. And I really wish it was, because the games were awesome. I think three programmers, one artist, two composers. I mean, it's such a small team over there at Gremlin Graphics. Let's look at this. So Gremlin Graphics, later Gremlin Interactive, and then ultimately Infogrames Studios, which I didn't know that. It was a British software house based in Sheffield, working mostly in the home computer market. Like many software houses established in the 80s, their primary market was the 8-bit range of computers, the ZX Spectrum, the Amstrad CPC, MSX, Commodore 16, and Commodore 64. The company was acquired by French video game publisher Infogrames in 1999 and was renamed Infogrames Studios in 2000. And then they closed down in 2003. Interesting. They also, early success was based on games such as Wanted, Monty Mole. I've never heard of that. For the ZX Spectrum, that's why. And then Thing on a Spring for the Commodore 64. I never played any of those games, because those are the consoles that I wasn't around with PC stuff at that time. There's a game called Zool on the Premiere and Premiere Manager in the early 90s. At this point, that this studio has done like nothing that is in. That's weird. Gremlin acquired Imagitech Design and DMA Design, which created the original Grand Theft Auto and Lemmings. So as they grew later, that was in 97. Interesting. So yeah, Top Gear 1 and 2. Top Gear 2 was released in Japan. Released as Top Racer 2 in Japan. It's the sequel to the 1992 Racer Top Gear. The game was first released in August of 93 for the Super Nintendo, and then there was a port for Sega released in 1994 for the Amiga as well. For the sequel, like the original, Gremlin used rehashed graphics and gameplay from the Lotus Racing trilogy. However, this game becomes more realistic with a damage diagram on the left side of the screen, slower cars, and the possibility to upgrade the machine. The cars become more difficult to handle, and the opponents are faster and tougher than in the previous game. The addition of weather plays a role, forcing the player to change from dry to wet tires. The game takes place in 64 tracks spanning 16 countries. Each country contains 4 races. Players need to finish in the top 10 positions in each race to qualify for the next one. There's a map that shows the course layout, the position of the players, the position of the car in first place. The player is given 6 nitro boosts at the start, which dramatically increase the car's speed for a short time. On certain courses, there are pickups along the road ranging from money, which gives $1,000 cash, and an N, which is an extra nitro boost, and an S, which is an automatic nitro administered right when picked up and returns each lap. Other pickups can be collected once per race. Players must take care to avoid too much damage to any area of the armor. If a section of armor is destroyed and the player takes damage in the area that destroyed the section of the armor used to protect, the car will spin out. Racers will be disqualified if they run out of fuel and coast to a stop before finishing the race. Since there are no pits for cars to refuel, and unlike the first game, upgrading the gearbox becomes mandatory in order to get the fuel economy needed to survive the longer races in the later portions of the game. Since the Genesis port of this game does not implement a fuel gauge, fuel economy is not a problem in that port. That's insane. That's fundamental to the gameplay, right? Like, you have a fuel gauge. You have to upgrade the gearbox to get to the longer. They ported these games so weirdly and wildly back in the Super Nintendo generation, folks. Like, today, we have it made in the shade. One game comes out on PC, and you get the exact same game on Xbox and PlayStation. They just perform differently. You even get the same game on the Switch. They are literally the same game, and they're just tweaked with their graphic settings so that they can run on their respective platforms. Back then, there were entirely different development teams, sometimes different publishing companies putting out a game on the Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo separately, and the games were wildly different, just like that. Like, I guess they couldn't do a fuel gauge system on the Sega Genesis for whatever reason, and it's just not there. So it's a different game. So interesting enough. Top Gear. If you've ever played it, let me know. It's one game I would love to talk about on our social media platforms, on Discord. I would love to know more about why it's not here. Why is it gone? Where did it go? Who owns the rights to it? I want to know more. And it's just an interesting series of games. So And I'm very curious about, like, the latest one came out in 2004 on the PlayStation 2. That doesn't look anything like this. It was engine is renderware. It was developed by Babylon, published by Wanadu. It's like entirely different. Top Gear Daredevil was the one before that. That was actually still published by Kemco. Look at that. And the developer was Papaya Studio. Huh. So, yeah, wild. Good memories, good times, good soundtrack. Go look up the soundtrack, the Top Gear Super Nintendo, and you'll be bumping. It's great. And I will wrap up this retro discussion with an update on my PlayStation 3. I have a Chech 01, C-E-C-H-A-O-1, Chech A01. We just call them A01s. It's an A01. It's a launch title, a launch model of the console. It is fully backwards compatible with the hardware chip for PlayStation 2, PS1. Of course, it's a PlayStation 3, right? So I've sent it in the mail. It is on the way to Computer Booter. I'm going to be interviewing him soon. Watch his live stream. Go check out Computer Booter on YouTube, or he's got a Discord channel, computerbooter.com. Look him up. Nothing has happened yet. It's just on the way. It got stuck in Illinois in a snowstorm that we're now seeing here. So once it arrives and there's more information about when he'll fix it, what that stream will look like, what our interview is, what that looks like, and then when I get it back, I have all kinds of content planned for using it, showing it off, using my webcam. So we'll get some video going, we'll get some live streams going, some capture footage. I can't wait. So get ready for like a spring of PlayStation 3. If you're sick of hearing PlayStation 3, I apologize, but not really. It is probably my favorite console as far as the PlayStation series are concerned. I love Nintendo. Nintendo is near and dear to my heart, and it would be very difficult for me to be able to choose between my children of Super Nintendo, N64, or GameCube, and then have to like look at the PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 is amazing, so that is by far my favorite PlayStation console, and I'm looking forward to being able to play all kinds of games on just two systems, right? The PS5, I got PS4 and 5 covered. PlayStation 3, I'll have PS1, 2, and 3 covered. And it'll be a revived launch title, a launch console. I'll go through its history. I might have a whole episode dedicated to it. I don't even know yet. There's so much I can say and talk about the PlayStation 3. But right now, my beloved A01 model is just in the mail, sitting on a truck on UPS somewhere over in California, awaiting its arrival at Computer Booter's shop, where he will fix it. And I'll watch it, and it'll be awesome. Hopefully it can be fixed. What he's going to be doing is what's called a Frankenstein mod, where you take a chip from the newer PlayStation 3 Slims or Super Slims, and there's different variations of chips, but I specifically ordered on eBay a PlayStation 3 Slim model that contains a 40 nanometer graphics processor. It's called the RSX, and he's going to take the 40 nanometer RSX off of the one that I bought from eBay and sent to him. That's also on the way. It's kind of like a race, which console is going to get to him first, and then he will put that chip onto my A01 board and put it all back together, and it will resurrect the PlayStation 3 and make it more reliable. It'll run cooler, and hopefully it'll last longer. So we'll find out. Stay tuned to this channel, 80bitpodsmash.com. Go check out all our socials. Go give us all the feedbacks. My co-host Penguin from 80-Bit Podsmash proper is very active on TikTok, so go check out the TikTok channel and hear what he has to say and some of the things he's posting over there, and expect some more content, PlayStation related or not, on our channel, 80bitpodsmash.com. And with that, I will see you next week.